Welcome, driver. You've reached the end of the map, where road lights fade and the only thing louder than the wind is what's hiding behind it. Out here, the highways don't sleep. Convoys vanish without radio calls. Desert towns appear for one night, then disappear like mirages. And sometimes, the voice you hear on your CB isn't human at all. Every story here comes from the blacktop and from truckers, night haulers, and dispatchers who swore they'd never speak again. So settle in, kill your headlights, and listen close, because these aren't just stories about the road. They're what the road remembers about us. Welcome to Shadow Whisper Trucker Files. If you like true-style horror, real highway legends, and stories that make you check your mirrors twice, subscribe now and keep your CB on Channel 19. You'll need it where we're going. Name's Tom Grady. I've been running long haul since '92, reefer units, dry vans, you name it. Seen every kind of night this country can throw at you. Blizzards in Wyoming, tornadoes in Kansas, and those Nevada stretches that look like God forgot to finish the map. But what I saw one night west of Winnemucca, that wasn't weather or fatigue or road mirage. That was something else. Something that didn't belong on this side of the line. It was late, 2:15 in the morning, maybe a little past. I was westbound on I-80, hauling a half-load of medical pallets out of Salt Lake City headed toward Sacramento. The desert out there has its own silence, not empty but heavy. You can almost feel it pressing against the cab, like the world's holding its breath. My rig, a 16 Peterbilt 579, hummed steady at 65. Coffee cup half empty, CB quiet except for the faint pop of static every few minutes. Outside, the stars were bright enough to see the outline of the distant hills. No traffic ahead, no taillights, just the white lines flicking under my beams. Then, out of nowhere, I saw headlights cresting a rise ahead. 3 rigs, side by side, maybe a quarter-mile up. Unusual formation, but not impossible. Maybe a convoy or a wide load running with escorts. As I got closer, I noticed they were all identical. Matte gray tractors, old Kenworth K100s. The square-nose type from the 80s, each one hauling a flatbed with tarps strapped down tight. No logos, no dot numbers, no plates, and no lights either. The glow I saw wasn't from their own beams. It was the reflection of mine bouncing off the metal. For a second, I figured it was my eyes playing tricks in the low desert air. But the details were too clean. The paint scuffed, chrome dulled, tires rolling perfectly in sync. I slowed down, heart starting to thump. Then they vanished. Not like they took an exit, there was none for miles. One blink, 3 trucks. The next empty road and nothing but the long curve of asphalt into blackness. I checked my mirrors. Nothing behind me but my own taillights and desert. For a good 5 minutes, I said nothing. Didn't reach for the CB, didn't even sip my coffee. Just drove. Then my radio crackled alive, faint but clear. A single line of CB chatter that cut through the static like a whisper. Keep formation. Don't break the line. I froze. The channel wasn't one I'd touched all night. Around 3 a.m., I passed a memorial cross on the shoulder. 3 names carved into the wood, faded by decades of dust and wind. Someone had wrapped a strip of reflective tape around it, and as my lights hit, I saw the years 1987. I didn't know until later. But there'd been a wreck here that year. 3 rigs piled together in the fog, all drivers dead. Locals said the crash was so bad they had to close the highway for 2 days. The stretch got a nickname, Convoy Mile. I didn't know that then. I just remember a cold shiver running through the cab. I pulled into the rest stop near Golconda around 3:40. Only one other truck parked, engine off, curtains drawn. I idled down, stretched my back, and replayed the dashcam footage on my tablet. There they were, 3 rigs, exactly like I'd seen. No plates, gray paint, perfect formation. I watched the clip twice, 3 times. Then on the 4th, right at the moment they disappeared, the footage glitched. Not a skip, not a blur. A solid black frame that lasted exactly 1 second. When the image came back, it was just empty road. I leaned in close and paused the frame right before the blackout. In that still image, the lead truck's side mirror reflected my headlights. And in that reflection, I swear I saw faces. Not clear, just outlines, pale and hollow-eyed, staring back at me. Then the screen flickered again. Static crawled across the image, and the video shut off. The tablet was dead. Battery had been full, that's when I heard it. Low and distant at first. The sound of engines outside. I stepped out of the cab, breath misting in the cold. The night was dead silent, but from the east, maybe half a mile down the interstate, came that unmistakable low rumble of diesel convoys, the synchronized growl of multiple rigs idling together. Only there were no lights, just the sound, rolling over the desert like thunder without a storm. Then, slowly the sound began to circle, not around the truck stop, but through it. You could feel the pressure shift like air moving past invisible mass. My mirrors trembled. Dust lifted off the asphalt, and for a split second I saw them again. Not ahead this time. Passing through me. 3 ghost gray rigs, silent, lightless, translucent enough to see the stars through their cabs. Their wheels didn't touch the ground. They glided and straight down the highway, vanishing into the dark like smoke fading in a breeze. The air reeked of ozone, hot metal and rain, even though the sky was clear. When the sound died, my engine coughed once and stalled. The gauges all froze at 0. It took me 3 tries to get her started again. The moment the ignition caught, the CB came to life by itself, spitting a single distorted phrase between bursts of static. Keep formation. Don't break the line. Then silence. I made it to Sacramento by dawn. Didn't sleep. Didn't even eat. Just dropped my load and parked the rig in the yard. Later that week, I told a mechanic friend what I'd seen. He didn't laugh, just asked where it happened. When I told him, his face went pale. He'd heard the same story from another driver years ago. Same stretch, same time of night, same 3 rigs with no lights. Said the story goes those 3 drivers were brothers. Ran a family freight line until the wreck. The fog that night was so thick they never saw the jackknife trailer ahead.
Hit it at full speed.
All 3 burned before the rescue trucks arrived. Since then, sometimes on quiet nights drivers see them, still in formation, still trying to finish their route west. That was 5 years ago. I still drive nights, still trust my eyes more than my instruments. But sometimes when I'm westbound on that stretch near Winnemucca, I catch a flicker of motion on the horizon. 3 faint glows sliding along the asphalt, perfectly in sync. I don't follow. I slow down, pull over, and let them pass wherever they're headed, because some convoys never really make it home. And if you ever hear a voice through the CB whisper, "Keep formation," don't answer. They say Nevada highways have their own kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that swallows sound whole. I've been driving long hauls for 23 years now, mostly westbound freight between Salt Lake and Reno. The desert roads out here can make a man start questioning what's real after too many miles of asphalt and heat shimmer. But I know what I saw that night near Lovelock. I've replayed it in my head 1,000 times, and no matter how I turn it, it doesn't fit into anything earthly. It was around 2:40 in the morning when dispatch rerouted me. The usual route on I-80 had some construction delays, so they sent me down Highway 95A, a quiet stretch that runs through flat desert with nothing but dry brush and scattered motels long past their prime. The message came through the tablet screen with simple coordinates. Proceed to way station number 47 for mandatory check. That didn't make sense. Way station number 47 hadn't been on the regular manifest for years. I figured it must have been reopened, maybe automated or something. It wasn't my job to question dispatch, just to drive. The night was dry, the air sharp with the smell of ozone after a distant lightning storm. My rig, a 2018 Freightliner Cascadia, hummed steady beneath me. Engine temperature perfect, tire pressure normal. Everything about the run felt routine. But the deeper I went down that road, the lonelier it felt. Not a single taillight, not one opposing beam for nearly an hour. Even the CB went dead. Just the faint hiss of static like a ghost breathing through wires. Then I saw it. The glow of sodium lights ahead. Faint orange halos in the fog that had begun to roll low across the highway. A rectangular structure came into view. State Way Station 47 only. The place looked wrong. The sign was half collapsed, letters eaten by rust. The asphalt lot was cracked, weeds splitting through it. I slowed the truck, expecting at least a working office or a lit window, but there was nothing. No movement, no sound. just the hum of my engine echoing off concrete walls that hadn't seen maintenance in years. Still, the weigh-scale lights, those faint green indicators, flickered to life. The digits glowed crisp and bright like something new, 426 lbs, perfect reading. Before I could even process that, a voice came through the intercom speaker outside. "Inspection complete, driver. You can go." It was a man's voice, calm, flat, mechanical, like dispatch audio filtered through too many old wires. I leaned out of the cab window, scanning the booth. The glass was shattered. Dust covered everything. There was no power line humming, no movement behind the tinted window, yet the intercom light blinked red. "Station number 47. This is truck 59Q7, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Confirm inspection complete?" Static hissed for a moment. Then clearer this time, "Inspection complete. Safe travels, driver." That's when I noticed the smell. It wasn't diesel or hot rubber. It was burnt wood, faint but distinct, like the aftermath of a structure fire, where smoke lingers even after rain. I rolled forward slowly, watching the booth in my mirror. For a split second, as my headlights cut across the window, I saw a figure, a man in a state trooper uniform seated behind the desk, unmoving. His face was pale, eyes open, reflecting the red light. Then the reflection vanished. About 20 miles later, I caught up with another driver at a rest stop outside Lovelock, guy named Earl. Hauls cattle out of Boise. We'd crossed paths before. I told him what happened, half laughing it off. He froze. "Buddy," he said slowly, "you didn't stop at number 47. I frowned. "Yeah, I did. Dispatch sent me there. Lights came on, system read my weight. You saying it's the wrong one?" Earl shook his head, lighting a cigarette with shaky hands. 47 burned down in 2018 electrical fire. Killed the night inspector inside. Guy's name was Holt. Whole damn station's nothing but concrete and ash now. They never rebuilt it. I thought he was pulling my leg until he pulled up a photo on his phone. It showed the same building I'd just been in. Same layout, but blackened. Roof collapsed, no power, no lights. I felt something cold crawl down my spine. That night I parked early. Couldn't bring myself to keep driving. But the weird part? My GPS log still showed a recorded stop at that weigh station. Exact coordinates matched. Even the timestamp aligned, 2:43 a.m., and the weight reading? Perfect. Same as what the digital scales in Reno later printed out. It shouldn't be possible. I called dispatch the next morning, asked who'd sent that reroute. The operator, some young guy who'd just joined, checked the logs and said, "Sir, there's no reroute on record for your unit last night, and we don't even have a weigh station the 47 in our current system. The last active entry was deleted 5 years ago." I didn't argue, just hung up and sat there staring at the steering wheel. Later that day, I drove past the highway again in full daylight. Pulled over where the entrance should have been. There was nothing but a broken fence and scorched earth. Not even a trace of concrete, just wind, sand, and twisted rebar sticking out of the ground. No booth, no sign, no scale. Sometimes at night when I run that route again, and yeah, I've had to more than once, my CB catches faint voices. They never make sense, just garbled chatter like old dispatch noise caught in a loop. But every so often I hear something clear. It's always the same. "Inspection complete, driver. You can go." And when it comes through, every gauge in my cab flickers for half a second, just like it did that night. I've stopped trying to explain it. Maybe it's a residual signal. Maybe it's just exhaustion playing tricks. But deep down I know the truth. There's still someone sitting behind that shattered glass, running checks long after the building burned. I just hope he never finds another driver to inspect, because if he does, maybe next time he won't let them go. I still hear the engine behind me every time the CB goes quiet. I've been driving trucks for most of my adult life, 26 years behind the wheel, mostly long hauls across the western states. You see things out there on the road, wrecks, weather, wildlife, sometimes things you just can't explain. But I've only had one run that made me question what was real and what wasn't. It happened on Highway 50, Nevada. The locals call it the loneliest road in America. That night, I was hauling electronics out of Sacramento, bound for Ely. It was early February, cold enough that the fog came down thick and heavy. hanging low over the asphalt like wet wool. I was driving a 2016 Peterbilt 579. Blue cab, flatbed loaded tight and tarped. My dispatcher had warned about black ice between Fallon and Austin, so I kept it steady, maybe 45 tops. The CB was dead silent. Even the usual chatter from other haulers was gone. By the time I passed mile marker 237, I'd been driving almost 9 hours straight. That's when I saw the lights. 2 amber hazards blinking ahead, steady and rhythmic. The fog made everything glow and smear. It looked like someone had parked on the shoulder, maybe a breakdown. You learn to look out for each other out there, so I slowed down, dropped gears, and eased onto the rumble strip. When I pulled up beside the other rig, the first thing that hit me was the sound, or rather, the lack of it. The engine was idling, sure, but there was no human sound. No shuffle of boots, no door creak, no radio chatter, just the low drone of diesel breathing into the fog. I flipped on my flashlight, stepped down into the cold. The air smelled like wet dust and exhaust, heavy, metallic, and wrong somehow. The truck itself was an older Kenworth, probably late 90s. Red paint, faded to a dull rust. The cab door was closed but not locked, and the driver's window was cracked just enough for fog to curl inside. I leaned close and saw the dash lights flickering. The hazard button pulsed red. Click, 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 in perfect rhythm. That's when I saw it. On the passenger seat sat a leather logbook, open. The pen lay across it like the writer had just stepped out. The last entry read, Feb 3, 2:17 a.m., mile marker 237, don't stop for the lights. The handwriting looked rushed, jagged lines pressed deep into the paper, like the guy was shaking while writing. I turned around fast, scanning the road, the ditch, the fog. Nothing. No other trucks, no footprints, no sign of anyone. I called out, "Hey driver, you good?" But my voice just bounced off the mist and came back flat. A few seconds later, the truck's engine sputtered, then stopped. No key turned, no click. Just silence. That's when I got the feeling. You know the one. The heavy chill under your ribs like someone's watching you from a place you can't point to. I decided I'd done my part. I got back in my own rig, shut the door, and tried to shake it off. The heater hummed. Wipers squealed across the windshield, and for a second I convinced myself it was just an abandoned truck. Maybe a driver had walked to get help. But when I shifted back onto the road, my hazard lights started blinking. I hadn't touched the switch. Click, click, click. Same exact rhythm. I tried pressing the button. Nothing. I turned the lights completely off and back on, still blinking hazards. Then my CB crackled to life, loud enough to make me jump. "Don't stop for the lights!" It came through under layers of static like an old recording. I picked up the mic. "Who's this? You're coming through broken." Nothing. Just dead air again. That's when I noticed the fog ahead thickening. It wasn't natural, it moved. Rolled in slow waves like something alive. The road disappeared under it, and for a second my headlights caught shapes. Reflections of chrome moving the way trucks move. But there was no sound of engines, no vibration, nothing. Phantom silhouettes. Whole convoys in silence, sliding through the mist like ghosts. I slowed down to 20, heart hammering so loud I could hear it over the hum of the tires. One of the ghostly rigs seemed to pass through mine. My windshield frosted over as if I'd driven through a freezer. Every gauge needle trembled and dropped, then jumped back up again. When the fog thinned, the road was empty, but my hazards were still flashing. I pulled over, turned off the ignition, and just sat there. The lights kept blinking, even with the key out of the slot. That shouldn't be possible. I reached over, yanked the battery disconnect under the seat, still blinking. Then, faintly, I heard another engine start up behind me. A slow, idle, familiar and distant. I looked in my side mirror. Through the fog, maybe 50 feet back, I could see 2 amber lights blinking in sync with mine. The same pattern, same rhythm. I stepped out trying to see clearer, but as soon as my boots hit the pavement, the lights behind me went out. The sound died with them. Just darkness and fog again, heavy and silent. I didn't bother looking for the other truck. I got back in, turned the ignition, and just drove. Didn't matter where, I just had to move. By sunrise, the fog had burned off. I stopped at a diner near Austin for coffee and asked one of the old-timers about the area. Told him, carefully, that I'd seen a rig parked around mile marker 237. He gave me this long, quiet look, then said, "Son, that marker don't exist anymore. They pulled it down after the accident." "What accident?" I asked. He stirred his coffee, eyes fixed on the cup. "Driver fell asleep back in '98. His truck rolled over right on that stretch. Hazards kept blinking for 3 days, even after they pulled the body out. Power system was fried, but those lights wouldn't quit. Couple other truckers swore they saw it afterward too. Same spot, same fog. Always a logbook inside saying not to stop." I didn't finish my coffee, just thanked him, left a few bills on the counter, and went back to my truck. That was 4 years ago. Since then, I've run that road maybe 6 or 7 times. And every damn time I turn off my CB before I hit that stretch. I keep my eyes straight ahead no matter what I see flashing in the fog. Because I swear on everything I know, sometimes. Out of the corner of my mirror, I can see 2 amber lights pulsing in rhythm with mine. And every time it happens, I can almost hear that voice through the static again, and low, broken, and fading. Don't stop for the lights, and I don't, not anymore. My name's Dale Hinson. I've been hauling freight across the western states since the late 90s. I've seen blizzards shut down I-80, dust storms that turned daylight into red twilight, and more than a few wrecks I still wish I hadn't. But what happened near Ely, Nevada, in the early hours of a February morning, that one still sits with me. I've told it once to a state trooper who didn't believe me. Maybe you'll believe it. It was 3:03 a.m. according to my dash clock. I was hauling a half-load of copper wiring out of Reno, bound for Salt Lake. My rig that night was an old but loyal 2012 Freightliner Cascadia, humming steady under me. The CB was silent except for a faint hiss, and the world outside was drowned in moonless dark. Highway 50 stretched ahead like a ribbon through nothing. They call it the loneliest road in America for a reason. No towns, no gas, just long shadows and cold air pressing on the glass. The heater clicked weakly against the February chill. I remember the smell of stale coffee and diesel, the hum of the tires against rough asphalt, and the faint vibration through the steering wheel, a heartbeat that kept me awake. Then I saw him, about half a mile ahead. In the middle of my lane, a dim orange glow started to flicker. Looked like one of those old-style lanterns. Real flame, not LED. At first I thought it was just another driver pulled over, maybe with a road flare. But as I got closer, I saw a man. He stood just off the shoulder wearing a high-vis orange vest and a white hard hat. One hand held that lantern. The other was raised, palm out, the universal signal to slow down. Behind him, I thought I saw cones. A few reflective stripes catching my headlights. Looked like a temporary construction zone. I eased off the throttle and downshifted, my engine grumbling low. He stepped closer to the lane, motioning for me to pull left, like he was diverting traffic. His face was half lit by the lantern glow, pale beneath the brim of his hat. The light shimmered off the vest's reflective tape, giving it a strange green tint in the fog. I rolled down my window a crack, letting the cold slap me awake. The night smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet, wet asphalt, ozone, and something metallic underneath. I stuck my head out and shouted, "You good out here, buddy?" He didn't answer, just waved that lantern again, more urgent this time, pointing toward the left shoulder. So I eased my rig to the left lane, coasting by slow. That's when everything went wrong. As my headlights swept over where he'd been pointing, I realized there was nothing there. No cones, no equipment, no flashing lights, just open blacktop. I hit the brakes gently, trying to process it. When I looked back in the side mirror, he was gone, not walking away. Not behind me, just gone. The lantern light had vanished too, swallowed by the dark. For a second, I thought maybe the fog was playing tricks on me. Maybe I'd passed him faster than I thought. But my rear lights cast a long red glow behind me, and there was nothing. No silhouette, no vest glinting. I felt a chill roll down my spine, so strong it made my fingers tighten on the wheel. Then, faintly, through the hum of the engine, I heard something, a single metallic clang, like a hammer hitting rebar. I grabbed the CB mic out of reflex. Breaker 19, anyone eastbound on 50 come back? You seeing any road work past Ely tonight? Static, I tried again. Any dot crews out here? Got a man on the shoulder with a lantern, says lanes blocked. More static. Then, just barely, someone replied, "Ain't no road work out there tonight, driver." The voice was flat, older, distant. "You said you saw a lantern?" I keyed the mic again. "Yeah, worker's vest, white helmet. Tried to flag me left, but he's gone. Whole site's gone." Silence. "Then you keep on rolling, driver. Don't stop." Not at 2:37. The transmission cut out with a crackle and no one answered again. I sat there gripping the wheel, feeling the vibration fade under my palms. The heater had started blowing cold. My mirror glass shimmered slightly like frost crawling up from the edges. Somewhere in the fog behind me, I thought I saw a flicker of orange light again, just once. Then it winked out. When I finally reached Ely around 4 a.m., I pulled into a diner lot across from an old Sinclair station. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped my thermos trying to refill it. Inside, the place was empty except for one old guy at the counter wearing a mechanic's jacket. He nodded at me, saw my face, and said, "Rough night on the 50? "Yeah," I said. "Saw some work being done out by 237. One of your DOT guys, maybe?" The man's eyebrows lifted slow. "Son, they ain't done road work out there since—" "Hell, R3 maybe. Not since the accident." "What accident?" I asked. He took a sip of coffee, eyes drifting somewhere far away. "Worker got hit. A semi came through a fog bank, didn't see the closure, took him clean off his feet. Poor bastard was carrying one of them old lanterns. They say it rolled halfway down the embankment and kept burning for 2 days. I didn't say anything for a long while." He leaned closer. "What color was the vest?" "Orange," I said. "Reflective stripes. Hard hat too." He nodded slow. "That's him then. Every few years someone sees him. Always around this time. Always flagging traffic that isn't there." I left the diner an hour later, sun just barely touching the hills. As I climbed back into my cab, I noticed something on my windshield. A thin streak, grayish-white like dust, but it had a pattern. 3 smudged lines slanted downward. Looked almost like finger marks drawn by someone wearing gloves. When I wiped them away, the smell hit me again. Metallic, cold, like hot steel cooling too fast. I started the truck, checked the mirrors, and as the engine rumbled to life, I swear I heard one faint voice through the CB static. "Left lane, clear." Then nothing but wind. I've driven that same stretch a dozen times since. Never seen him again, but I still slow down when I hit mile 237, just out of respect or maybe habit. Sometimes when the fog gets thick and the world turns quiet, I see a faint orange shimmer in the corner of my mirror. Just enough to make me tighten my grip on the wheel, and I swear, for a second I can smell burnt metal and wet asphalt. The kind of scent that clings to you long after the night's gone still. That's when I keep my eyes on the road and whisper, "Left lane's clear, brother. You can rest now." Name's Tom Weaver, 32 years behind the wheel. Most of them running long hauls through Nevada, Arizona, and the edges of nowhere. You drive long enough, you learn that silence is heavier than noise, and the desert at night? It's the loudest silence there is. It was early spring, but the desert didn't care. Midnight wind howled like a sandblaster, dry and electric, and the sky was moonless. I was hauling fertilizer from Reno to Tonopah, running south on 95 about 30 miles past Fallon, when the CB came alive. A burst of static first and then a voice. "Anyone on Channel 9, please help me." Coordinates: 3926 north, 11878 west. "Please help." Then silence. That old emergency channel hasn't been used much since cell phones took over. I hadn't heard a distress call in years. I grabbed the mic, thumbed it down. "Copy that, this is Weaver, westbound on 95. Say again your message, ma'am?" Nothing. Just static. Dry and constant, like breathing through sandpaper. I checked the coordinates on my dash GPS. It was about 6 miles ahead, near a service road cutting through an old mining site. I almost ignored it. Should have ignored it. But I've been out here too long not to at least check. I'd want someone to do the same for me if I rolled over out here. So I slowed the rig down, turned onto that service road. Gravel spitting under the tires. No lights, no movement, just the sound of wind. The deeper I went, the stranger it felt. The CB crackled again. The same woman's voice, same tone, same words, same coordinates. Like someone had hit rewind on a recording. My headlights cut through the dust, hitting something metallic. A pickup half buried in sand. The windshield was shattered. Hood rusted over. Looked like it had been there for months. I parked my truck on the shoulder, left the engine idling, and stepped out. The cold hit me first. Not desert cold, but sharp metallic cold like air that's been sitting in a freezer. My boots sank into loose sand as I approached. The pickup store was open. Inside, an old CB unit sat on the dash, still powered on, its red light blinking weakly. The speaker hissed, and then, "Anyone on Channel 9, please help me." Coordinates. The same exact words, not a syllable different. It wasn't coming from my cab. It was coming from this truck. I backed up fast, scanning the area. My own headlights cast my shadow across the wreck, stretching it out into something long and unnatural. No footprints. No tire marks except my own. I keyed my radio again, voice low. "Breaker, this is Weaver. I found a vehicle, looks abandoned." Anyone else hearing that call? Nothing. Then, faintly, another voice cut through. Male this time, a tired, distorted by distance. "Turn back, Weaver." My stomach dropped. He said my name. "Who is this?" I asked. "Identify yourself." Static. Then, "She calls everyone who listens." The radio went dead. I got back in the cab, slammed the door, and shifted into gear. My heart was racing, hands slick on the wheel. The road behind me looked different now. The reflective posts seemed out of order. The mile markers gone. Then the CB flared again, louder this time, filled with overlapping voices. Dozens of them. Men, women, all whispering in panic, giving out coordinates, crying for help. The signals twisted together like a chorus of static. I shut the CB off. The noise kept going. Even with the unit off, I could hear it faintly either from outside the truck. I floored it. The rig rattled down the service road back toward 95. My GPS was spinning, blinking the same coordinates again and again. 3926 north, Pars 1878 west, no matter how far I drove. When I finally saw the main highway again, relief hit me like a flood. I pulled onto the asphalt, heart still hammering. I turned the CB back on just to hear normal chatter again. Silence. Not even the usual trucker banter. I looked at the digital clock on the dash. 3:17 a.m. But when I'd turned off onto that road, it had been 2:41. I'd only been gone 15 minutes. My odometer said I'd driven nearly 40 miles. I don't remember any of it. When I reached Tonopah at dawn, I parked at a diner and went inside, hands still trembling. Told another driver about what happened. Old guy named Rick who'd been running that stretch for decades. He stopped stirring. His coffee when I said the coordinates. "Don't ever follow those," he said quietly. "That's where the Sand Hollow accident happened." He told me about a tanker driver, a woman mid-30s, who wrecked there in '03. Rolled her rig in a dust storm. Took 3 days before they found her. CB still broadcasting her last distress call. They pulled her body from the wreck, still clutching the mic. The recording on her CB kept playing for days afterward, even after they cut the power. That night, parked outside Tonopah, I turned my CB on again, just to see. Static filled the cab. Then faintly, through the noise, I heard it again. "Anyone on Channel 9, please help me." Same coordinates, same voice. But then beneath it, another voice whispered. Lower, broken, and all too familiar. "Weaver, you shouldn't have stopped." My throat went dry. I looked at the CB display, Channel 9, same as before. The red light blinked once. Then again. In the reflection of the windshield, I saw the passenger seat belt slowly unbuckle itself, as if someone invisible had just climbed in. The seat sank slightly. No sound. No breath, just wait. The CB hissed softer now, almost like breathing. Then it went dead. I don't use my CB anymore. Most drivers don't. We rely on phones and GPS, satellites and signals that don't carry ghosts. But every so often, when I'm cutting through that same desert stretch outside Fallon, I still hear something faint through the static. A woman's voice. Soft, pleading. "Anyone on Channel 9? And when the wind picks up, I swear I can hear her breathing inside the cab, syncing with mine. I keep my radio off now. But sometimes in the dead quiet between exits, the speaker lights up anyway, blinking red, pulsing slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Name's Cal Dawson. Been hauling long routes since the late 90s. Seen every kind of weird out here. Dust storms that look alive, coyotes that don't make a sound, empty cars idling with the doors open. But nothing has stuck with me quite like what I saw off Highway 50, somewhere between Austin and Ely, Nevada. They call it the loneliest road in America. That night, it earned the title. It was past 2 a.m., 14 hours into a double shift. I was hauling construction panels out of Carson City in my old Kenworth T680, headed east. The road was empty, just an endless ribbon of gray cutting through the black desert. My eyelids were starting to burn, and I hadn't seen another pair of headlights in over an hour. The dashboard clock glowed green, ticking away minutes like it was measuring my sanity. Then I saw it, the blue glow of a rest stop sign. Half covered in dust, rest area, 1 mile. I figured I'd pull in, stretch my legs, splash some water on my face. That decision still doesn't sit right with me. The lot was deserted. No rigs, no cars, just a single sodium light flickering over cracked pavement. The place looked like it hadn't been cleaned in years. Trash danced across the concrete in the wind, and a vending machine near the entrance hummed weakly like it was breathing. The restroom building sat off to the side, concrete walls stained by rain and desert dust. The light above the door flickered, throwing long, stuttering shadows that made the place look like it was moving. Inside, the air was cold. Not desert night cold, I mean inside freezer cold. The kind that settles in your bones. The first thing I noticed was the sound. Not silence, not quite. More like the steady hum of fluorescent lights struggling to stay alive. Every few seconds, they'd flicker and buzz. A pulse of dimness rolling through the room. The mirrors lined the back wall. Old with cracks like veins. I stepped up to the sink, turned on the tap. Nothing but air and a faint smell of metallic dampness. Like blood and rain. Then the lights flickered again. When they came back on, my reflection didn't move. I blinked, leaned forward, moved my hand. My reflection stayed still, staring at me. Same expression, but frozen, like it was waiting for me to notice. Then slowly it smiled, a small, deliberate smile, the kind people give you when they know something you don't. I froze. My breathing got shallow. Every instinct screamed to turn away, but my body wouldn't move. The hum of the lights grew louder, and for a second, I thought I could hear the reflection breathing. Then all the lights went out, pitch black. I don't remember opening the door, just stumbling outside, my boots scraping on the pavement. The air out there felt thin, like breathing through a straw. I looked back once. Through the narrow window in the restroom door, I could see faint light flickering, and for just a moment a shadow in the glass, standing exactly where I'd been. I told myself I was tired, hallucinating, needed coffee, maybe a nap. I got back in my truck, started the engine, and pulled onto the highway. But that's when I saw it, in the side mirror just behind me. My reflection, not me sitting in the cab, not the road. My reflection, staring straight into the mirror, smiling faintly. I wiped the glass, thinking maybe it was a trick of light. But the reflection's background didn't match the cab. It was still in the restroom. Same cracked tile, same flickering lights, and it moved closer to the mirror. Slowly, deliberately. I slammed my hand against the mirror, hard enough to make it shake, but the reflection didn't flinch. It just raised its hand, and tapped the glass from its side once, twice. The sound echoed, but from inside the cab. I stopped breathing. Turned on every interior light I had, but the cab felt smaller now, colder. Like the air was being shared with someone else. The CB crackled to life suddenly, even though it was off. A faint, distorted voice came through. My own voice. "Why'd you leave me there, Cal?" I reached out and pulled the plug from the unit. The static didn't stop. Outside, the desert stretched in every direction. Flat, black, endless. My headlights seemed weaker, swallowed by the night. Then from the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A silhouette walking along the road's edge, matching my speed. Tall, human, no flashlight. No reflection in the glass, just that same faint smile. I floored it, but it stayed beside me, pacing the truck as if the desert itself was carrying it along. Every time the headlights blinked against the road signs, its shadow would vanish, then reappear closer to the cab. The CB flared again, louder this time. That same voice, my voice. "You looked in too long." The mirrors began to vibrate. The air smelled of ozone and burnt rubber, sharp and electric. The windshield fogged from the inside, and written across the condensation in uneven strokes were 3 words: "Look behind you." I didn't. Couldn't. Instead, I gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles went white and drove until the first sign of dawn broke over the desert. When I finally pulled into Ely, the side mirrors were cracked, both of them, as if something inside had tried to push out. A week later, I passed another driver at a rest stop near Reno. We got to talking, road stories, you know. He mentioned Highway 50. Said there's a rest area out there folks don't use anymore. Said a driver died in that restroom years ago. Fell asleep at the sink, hit his head on the counter. They say when the paramedics found him, his eyes were open, fixed on the mirror, and the reflection was still smiling. Now, I keep my mirrors folded at night. Always. Even when I park at brightly lit truck stops, I angle them down toward the asphalt. Because sometimes in that faint reflection on the window glass, I can see it again. That pale, waiting grin. It doesn't move. Doesn't fade. Just waits, like it's still trying to finish the movement I never made back in that restroom. My name's Hank Wallace, long-haul driver for over 20 years. I've hauled everything from lumber to frozen meat across these western highways. But there's one stretch I'll never take again. It's out past Tonopah, Nevada, along Route 93, where the desert meets the sky and the radio hums with ghosts. It happened 3 years ago, on a Tuesday night that looked like any other. Sky clear, air dry, the kind of night where the stars feel too close. I was hauling a refrigerated trailer for a Vegas supply run. Tight schedule, 12-hour route. The GPS rerouted me, said there was construction ahead, and offered a shortcut via exit 12. I remember squinting at the screen, because I'd driven that stretch a dozen times before. There was no exit 12. The exits jumped from 11 straight to 13 always had. But when I looked up, there it was, and a green reflective sign shining in my headlights. Exit 12, Coleridge, a fresh sign. Clean metal. Brand new bolts. The ramp curved down into a canyon cut. No streetlights, no other vehicles. Just a long concrete slope vanishing into dark. I took it. At first it felt normal. Cracked pavement. A few desert shrubs glowing white in my beams. Then the air changed. The CB static that had been humming for miles suddenly went silent. Even the hum of my reefer unit dulled, like sound didn't carry right down there. 10 minutes in, I saw lights. A flicker of orange sodium lamps ahead. A town didn't make sense. There shouldn't have been any towns for 50 miles, but the place looked real. Small gas station on the corner, couple of rusted cars, a sign swinging in the wind. Coleridge Fuel and Service. I pulled up, engine idling low. The whole street was silent except for the tick of my cooling engine. The gas station had a single pump, the old kind with numbers that flip instead of roll digital. The glass on the store's windows was dusty, the kind of grime that takes years to build. Then, movement. A man stepped out of the shadow near the pump. Coveralls, faded red cap, oil stains down his sleeves. He didn't say anything, just nodded once and lifted the nozzle like he'd done it 1,000 times. I rolled the window down halfway. "Hey there, appreciate it." Didn't even think this place was on the map. No answer, just the rhythmic click of fuel pumping. He moved slow, deliberate, like time didn't matter here. The air smelled like ozone and burnt rubber, like right after lightning hits asphalt. When he finished, he tapped the side of my tank twice, clang, clang, then walked toward the office. I climbed down, wallet in hand. The moment I turned my back, something shifted. The breeze stopped. Every sound, the desert insects, the creak of the station sign, just cut out. When I stepped inside the office, the man was gone. No counter. No shelves. No smell of fuel or coffee or dust. Just emptiness. 4 walls stripped bare, sunlight leaking through holes in the roof that shouldn't have been there a minute ago. Outside, my truck sat alone in the dark. The lights of the town, gone. Just open desert, stretching flat and silent to the horizon. I stood there, breath fogging in the cold air. My fuel gauge still read full. My GPS, no signal. The screen froze, the clock flashing 12 a.m. over and over. I climbed back into the cab, turned the engine. It caught instantly, too instantly, like it had never been off. Back on Route 93, the world felt wrong. The highway signs looked older, the asphalt rougher, patched with tar lines. And when I finally hit a signal, my dispatcher's voice came through the CB, broken, echoing like through an old recording. "Hank, you copy? Where the hell have you been, man? We lost your ping 3 hours ago." 3 hours? I checked the dash clock. It was 12:17. I'd left the main road at 11:42. Wasn't even gone 40 minutes. He paused. "You're joking, right? You missed the way station and 2 calls. You sure you're okay?" I didn't answer. I was staring at the receipt lying on the passenger seat. The one I didn't remember grabbing. It read, "Coleridge Fuel and Service, June 12, 1978. Diesel 1246. There was even a faded signature at the bottom. Attendant. Frank R.I. kept driving until dawn. Didn't stop until I hit the outskirts of Vegas. The gas never ran out. When I told a few drivers at the diner about it the next day, they laughed, said I must have nodded off and dreamed the whole thing. But one old-timer, name of Carl, went quiet. He pushed his coffee aside and said, "Coleridge, huh? My dad used to talk about that. Said it got buried in a mining collapse back in '79. Whole town condemned." I showed him the receipt. He stared at it for a long time, then slid it back across the table. "Burn it," he said. "Don't keep things from places that ain't here anymore." I didn't listen. I kept it in the glove box like proof that it all happened. But a week later I found it changed. The paper cracked and yellowed like it had been sitting in sunlight for 40 years. Now, every once in a while, my GPS does something strange. I'll be running long haul through that same corridor and it'll blink. Rerouting. Exit 12, Cole Ridge, there's no sign anymore. I've looked, but sometimes when the desert fog rolls low and the road hums beneath my tires, I swear I see it, a faint green glow on the horizon, where no exit should be. And every time I pass that spot, my fuel gauge twitches, just enough to remind me that maybe, somewhere under the sand, Coleridge is still pumping gas for anyone who dares to stop. I don't take detours anymore, and I don't drive nights because when the road gets too quiet and the CB goes dead, I still hear 2 hollow taps on my tank. Clang, clang, like someone's letting me know the fill's done. My name's Jack Hensley, 30 years behind the wheel, mostly running the western routes, Reno to Boise, sometimes down into Nevada's forgotten roads. You spend that long on the highway, you learn to keep yourself company. Some guys talk to their rigs, some sing. Me, I tune the AM dial and listen for whatever's out there between the static. It's a habit I picked up back in the 80s. There's something comforting about that faint hum of radio chatter while the world outside fades into darkness. It makes the cab feel less like a coffin on wheels. That night, the one I still can't explain, I was heading east on Highway 95, hauling appliance parts to Twin Falls. Middle of February. The desert was quiet, moonlight cold and sharp like aluminum. I just crossed a stretch where the signs warned, next service is 72 miles. No other headlights, no tail lights, just me, the white lines, and a hum that felt eternal. The CB was quiet. Too quiet, so I flicked on the old AM tuner out of habit, letting the frequencies roll past church preachers, country music, and fuzz, until something steady cut through. It was a male voice, low and crisp, reading out road reports like a dispatch update. US 6, closed past the Green Hollow Bridge. Southbound 41, expect fog delays near Norton Junction. Alternate through Delmare Pass. The tone was official, smooth, practiced, like those old government traffic updates they used to air before GPS. I leaned in, squinting at the receiver. The signal was surprisingly clear. Delmare Pass, he said again. The name stuck in my head because I didn't remember any Delmare Pass on my route. I figured maybe I'd missed a sign. Then he read another. Detour near Hammond Grove. Debris on the road after last night's washout. That made me pause. I knew this desert. There was no Hammond Grove, not for at least 100 miles in any direction. I'd driven every inch of this route for years. Static buzzed, then the voice came back. Calm, steady. Eastbound drivers, keep an eye out for fog near Lone Pine. If you're already past, Godspeed. This is station KRLY 7:30 a.m. signing off at the hour. Then silence. I drove another 40 minutes trying to shrug it off. Maybe it was a pirate frequency, or a rebroadcast from somewhere old and forgotten. The desert's full of echoes, radio waves bouncing off mountain ridges, signals from states away. But I couldn't shake the unease. A half hour later, the fog rolled in, thick, white as milk. It poured across the road from nowhere, swallowing my headlights whole. The world went dead quiet, engine hum muffled, tires whispering on asphalt. I slowed to 30, gripping the wheel. And then, through the fog, the radio clicked back on. No one touched the dial. "Evening, drivers," the voice said. "We're back on air. Update from Hammond Grove. Accident reported near mile marker 2 on 12. Unknown vehicle. Keep your lights low, and if you see wreckage, do not stop." Something about that last line, "do not stop," hit me like a cold hand. The voice wasn't just informative anymore. It was aware. My dashboard clock read 1:46 a.m. I checked the GPS. No Hammond Grove, no marker. 2:12. Just an empty gray road looping. Endlessly through fog, I could smell ozone through the vents, sharp, metallic, like the air after lightning strikes. My skin prickled. The steering wheel felt slick in my hands. Then, through the windshield, I saw faint hazard lights ahead. A vehicle half jammed into the embankment. Looked like a pickup. I slowed, instinctively reaching for the CB mic. "Breaker 19, you copy? Got a truck down on 95 near mile marker. Static." Then the same radio voice interrupted. "That's the one, eastbound. Keep moving. Don't stop." My heart kicked hard. It wasn't coming from the CB. It was coming from the AM station. I pressed the brake, uncertain. The fog thickened so much I could barely see my own hood. Then, just for a second, the headlights cut across the crashed pickup. The windshield was shattered inward. No driver, no blood, just an empty cab, door hanging open. The hazard lights pulsed weakly like a heartbeat fading. I inched past, and as I did, I noticed something that froze me. The license plate was half buried in mud, but I could make out the year sticker. 96, not 2023, 1996, the same year the cook would later mention. The fog lifted as suddenly as it came. Within minutes, the air cleared, stars overhead again. I drove until dawn, pulled into a diner outside Elko, still shaken. The waitress poured my coffee and I asked, casual as I could, "You ever hear of a station called KRLY? 2:30 a.m. The cook behind the counter looked up. Big guy, tattooed forearms, eyes tired but sharp. He stared at me for a long moment. "Where'd you hear that?" he asked. "Last night," I said. Guy was giving road updates. Sounded local. The waitress stopped pouring. The cook came over, voice low. "KRLY went off the air in 96, tower collapsed in a storm. Killed the night announcer. Name was Don Holloway. He was reading road reports when lightning hit the transmitter." He swallowed. "You're not the first trucker to say they've heard him since." I laughed, a weak, nervous sound. "You're kidding." He shook his head. "They say Don still reads the same updates, same tone. But the roads he talks about, they're from back then. Places that don't exist anymore." The waitress slid the coffee toward me. "Sometimes it only comes through when there's fog," she added softly. Like he's warning folks who never made it home. I left that diner after sunrise trying to reason it away. Maybe it was an old recording caught in a radio bounce. Maybe my brain was playing tricks after too many hours without sleep. But the thing is, I checked my fuel logs later that week. I'd written down the mile marker where I saw that pickup. I drove that stretch again 3 days later. Nothing. No skid marks. No broken glass. No sign a truck had ever left the road. But I did find one thing, just off the shoulder, half buried in dirt, a fragment of metal, rusted. Looked like part of an old radio antenna, twisted at the base. When I picked it up, it was still warm. And when I climbed back into my cab, my radio, which had been off the whole time, crackled once more. This is KRLY 7:30 a.m. Signing off. Until next time. Then silence. That was 2 years ago. I still drive that route. Still tune the AM bands when the nights get long. But if I ever hear that voice again, calm, patient, too steady to be real, I'll keep the dial turned off. Because every driver who's heard Don Holloway says the same thing. Once you catch his signal, you never stop hearing it. Even when the road is quiet. Even when the engine dies. Even when the fog rolls in. Name's Ed Rourke. Been running long hauls out of Nevada for 21 years. Flatbeds, reefers, tankers, you name it. If there's a road between Reno and Salt Lake, I've driven it more times than I can count. The desert has a rhythm, a silence that seeps into your bones. Out there, it's just you, the road, and the hum of the engine, until it's not. That night, I was hauling aluminum sheets east on Interstate 80, headed toward Wyoming. It was late March, cold enough that frost rimed the mirrors by midnight. The highway was nearly empty. No convoy chatter, no oncoming lights for miles. By the time I hit Battle Mountain, fatigue was gnawing at me. I'd been on duty nearly 14 hours. There's a small rest area west of town, nothing fancy. Just a row of truck slots, 2 vending machines, and a bathroom that smells like bleach and diesel. I pulled in around 2:45 a.m., killed the engine, and let the stillness settle. Outside, the air was thin and dry, carrying that metallic tang of cold iron and sand. I remember the stars, unnaturally bright, scattered over a black sky like ice chips. I locked up, checked my rig, a Kenworth W900, old but reliable, then crawled into the sleeper berth. The hum of cooling metal filled the silence. I left the dash cam running as always. Habit. You never know when someone might try their luck around parked trucks. I drifted off fast, somewhere between exhaustion and that thin veil of desert dreams. At 3:32 a.m., I woke up, no sound at first, just my own heartbeat in my ears. Then the passenger door latch clicked. Soft, slow, deliberate. I froze. Thought maybe the wind had tugged it. But then I heard it again, the door creaking open. The cab's air pressure shifted just slightly. Cold air brushed my cheek. Then came the whisper. It said my name. Ed. Not loud, not harsh. Just close, too close, I didn't move. My eyes were open, but I kept still, staring into the dark. The glow from the dash lights spilled faint green across the steering wheel. The passenger seat was just out of view from where I lay. Whoever and whatever Mamba was there. Didn't move again. The door eased shut like someone had climbed in and pulled it closed quietly behind them. My throat went dry. I couldn't bring myself to speak. I just listened. Every small sound in that cab was amplified. The ticking of the cooling metal, the distant hum of the highway, my own shallow breathing. I wanted to grab the flashlight beside my bed, but fear pinned me down like a weight. After what felt like an hour, though the clock said 3:41 a.m., I finally passed out again, heart hammering, mind trying to rationalize it away. When dawn bled over the mountains, I stepped outside to clear my head. My boots crunched frost off the asphalt. The desert was still pale gold in the morning light. The first thing I did was check the passenger door. The handle had faint scratches, fresh. Like fingernails had slipped across the chrome. Inside, I noticed the seatbelt was buckled, tight, crossed perfectly over the empty seat. That stopped me cold. I hadn't touched it. I never buckle that side. Then I remembered, the dash cam. I climbed back in, replayed the footage. At 3:31:52 a.m., the video showed the truck still and quiet. Then at 3:32:04, the passenger door handle moved. Slow, steady. The door opened fully, for exactly 9 seconds. And then, it shut, no figure, no silhouette. Just the door moving by itself. Smooth, like someone invisible had stepped in. At 3:32:13, the cab light flickered on for half a second, though the switch was off. Then it went dark again. I paused the video there, just sat staring at the frozen frame, the open door, the night beyond it, blacker than black. Later that morning, I stopped at a diner in Winnemucca, trying to shake it off. I showed the footage to another driver I knew, Mac Two Dogs Ellis, a veteran of 40 years. He watched it twice, silent. Then he said, "You parked near Battle Mountain, didn't you?" I nodded. He exhaled slowly. Shouldn't have done that. He told me a story I'd never heard before. Said back in the early 90s, a trucker named Frank Sleeper Mathis went missing from that same rest stop. His rig was found idling, door wide open, CB still humming static. No sign of him. All they found inside was his logbook and an imprint on the passenger seat, like someone had been sitting there, watching. Some drivers started calling that area the sleeper's lot. They said sometimes he hitches a ride, just slips into your cab while you're asleep. Keeps you company through the dark. Problem is, once he's in, he doesn't always leave. I finished my coffee, laughed it off. But laughter doesn't stick long on empty roads. That night, somewhere past Elko, I caught myself glancing at the passenger seat again and again. The belt was still fastened. I unbuckled it just to prove something to myself. An hour later, at a way station stop, it was buckled again. No one near the truck. No one inside. The air in the cab was freezing, colder than outside. A faint smell of diesel and ozone lingered. Sharp, metallic like rain hitting hot asphalt. I turned off the engine, sat there listening. The silence was thick. My reflection in the side mirror looked pale, flickering in the station's sodium lights, and for just a second I thought I saw something else in that reflection. A figure in the passenger seat, head tilted toward me, watching. When I turned, nothing. Just the seatbelt tight again. I've thought about tearing that seat out altogether, but I can't bring myself to do it. Every time I'm on a long haul through Nevada, I feel it, that weight in the air beside me. The subtle shift when the rig hits a bump, like something unseen adjusting its posture. Sometimes, when I stop to rest, I swear I hear breathing on slow, steady, matching the hum of the engine, and twice now, I've woken to the faint click of the door handle, as if he's stepping out for a while before slipping back in. I keep the dash cam running, always. But I stopped watching the footage, because the last time I did, just last week, I saw something I can't explain. The camera caught me sleeping, and from the passenger seat, a shadow leaned forward, just enough for the faint outline of a face to appear in the windshield reflection. It looked calm, almost peaceful, and right before the clip ended, the shadow turned toward the lens and smiled. These days, I leave that seatbelt buckled. Feels like less of an invitation that way, but every once in a while, when I'm parked under a dead stretch of stars, the belt tightens, just slightly, as if someone's shifting their weight beside me, and when that happens, I don't move. I don't speak. I just grip the wheel and wait for dawn, because some passengers don't want conversation. They just don't want to ride alone. They say Highway 95 has its ghosts. Most of us long-haul drivers don't talk about it too much. You keep your eyes on the mirrors, your hands on the wheel, and let the miles swallow the rest. But sometimes the road gives you something back, something you wish it hadn't. My name's Jack Harlan, been running routes between Reno and Tonopah for 22 years. Mostly fuel hauls and diesel, sometimes aviation grade. You get used to the desert silence. It's not really empty out there, and it's waiting. That night, the storm was rolling in from the south, lightning stitched across the horizon, those thin, silent veins before the thunder catches up. I'd left Fallon around 10:30 p.m., hauling 8,000 gallons in a silver Peterbilt. The CB was dead quiet, not even the usual chatter from the local haulers, just static and the occasional pop of lightning over the AM band. Somewhere past mile marker 172, I saw them, 3 tankers ahead of me. Low-slung, old-style haulers, the kind with rounded tanks and bright chrome fenders. Their taillights shimmered red through the heat haze. Looked like they were running clean and steady, maybe 1,500 feet ahead. Only something was off. Every few minutes, their lights would flicker, vanish for a second like they'd hit an invisible dip, then reappear miles down the road, far too quick for any real truck to move. I thought maybe the lightning was playing tricks or maybe there was dust crossing the beam pattern, but the storm was still miles off. I radioed out. Convoy southbound, this is Harlan on 95. You boys got your lights flickering, everything good up there? No reply. Just that sharp CB hiss, the kind that spikes your ears and fades like a whisper. I pushed a little harder on the throttle, trying to close the distance. I've seen convoys before, company runs that stick together for safety. But these rigs looked like something out of another era. Big rounded tanks, no modern DOT markings. Even their license lights were dim, yellowish, like incandescents from the 70s. I was curious. Too curious. The road narrowed between 2 canyon walls and the wind came down hard. The desert has a way of breathing on your neck when storms move in. Dry 1 minute, cold the next. My mirrors shook. And then the convoy blinked again, gone. The highway stretched straight ahead for 5 miles, flat as a ruler. No exits, no turnoffs, no dust trails. Empty. I checked the clock, 12:14 a.m. I'd been following them for over an hour. My fuel gauge read the same as before, like I hadn't moved at all. That's when I noticed something else. The smell, it wasn't rain or diesel. It was ozone, sharp, metallic like air right before lightning hits. The cab felt colder too. I touched the vent, heater still on full. When I looked up, I saw the lights again, this time closer. The 3 tankers were back, rolling slow, side by side now, taking up both lanes, no brake lights, no signals. Just steady, synchronized motion, as if one mind was driving all 3. I dropped gears, hung back, and kept a safe distance. But the radio crackled. Breaker 19, convoy clear ahead, southbound fuel. Watch your distance. It was a calm, flat voice, male, steady, the kind dispatchers use. But it wasn't my dispatcher, and no one uses Breaker 19 anymore. That's CB talk from decades ago. Copy that? I asked, handshaking just slightly, static, then a faint echo. The same words replayed. Watch your distance. I killed the CB, just couldn't listen anymore. The storm finally hit around Walker Lake. Rain came in sideways sheets, turning the asphalt into liquid glass. I slowed down, eyes burning from the headlights reflecting off the wet road. And then, as lightning flashed across the valley, I saw them again. The convoy parked on the shoulder, all 3 rigs idling. The taillights glowed soft red through the rain. I slowed, thinking maybe they'd pulled over for the weather. But as I passed, I looked into their cabs. Each one was empty. No drivers, no movement. The engines were running, sure, but there was no heat haze from exhaust, no spray from tires, no shadow shifting behind the wheel. Just rain pouring through open windows and wipers frozen mid-swipe. I pulled over a quarter mile ahead. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in the steering column. When I looked in the mirror, they were gone. The shoulder was empty. No tire tracks, just the rain hissing on the asphalt. I drove straight through to Tonopah that night. Didn't stop once. By the time I parked at the depot, the dawn had turned the clouds pale yellow, and my hands were still shaking. At the diner across from the way station, I told the story. Not like this, not with all the details, just the basics. The cook was an older guy with hands like sandpaper. When I mentioned the tankers, he stopped wiping the counter. 3 of them? He asked. Yeah, looked like fuelers. Older style rigs. Silver or chrome? Chrome. He nodded slowly, eyes somewhere past me. You must have seen the refuelers. They went off a cliff in 82 north of Goldfield. Tried to make the pass during a storm, road gave out. Whole convoy dropped 200 feet into the ravine. I told him that wasn't possible. I'd seen their lights, heard their engines clear as anything. The old man just said, they still make their rounds when the desert storms come. I left it at that. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've taken the same route twice. I don't tune the radio anymore and I don't chase headlights. But some nights, when the wind starts howling through the canyon, I catch a reflection in the chrome of my hood. 3 faint red dots moving in formation. And for a second, I swear I can hear that voice through the static again. Breaker 19. Watch your distance. I still drive that stretch of 95. And sometimes when the storm hits right, I think I see them out there, keeping pace just beyond the rain. Maybe some deliveries never end.